Good evening, sir.
Yo, this is episode 83 of the Beef and Bitcoin podcast with your host, Brett and CH. Today's topics, 402 payment required. Looks like we've found there's been a new proposal for an HTTP Lightning Network enabled web proposal from Lightning Labs. Looks pretty slick. We'll talk about that. There's also a class action suit for none other than utility tokens and some of our favorite characters in the space like Vinny Lingham, CZ, Dan Larimer, Binance, Civic, BitMEX. I mean, you name it, they're getting served. Really sucks, but we'll go and talk about that because I think that's pretty interesting, and we'll talk a little bit about the coming weeks. But yeah, man, we just recorded the other night. But how you doing?
I'm doing good. Dow futures are up a solid 2.5%. Long America, that's all I have to say. Maybe there's a little hope here, but we'll see. It's not much has changed between last night and today, but it seems like there's a little more hope on the horizon here. And the reality of this coronavirus thing is like, yeah, sure, I thought it was a good idea to lock things down a while ago. It's like now, obviously it's pretty apparent. You can't lock down everything forever. We can't just shut down the global economy for another fucking 2 months. There won't be any supplies, there won't be any resources, and that's just going to lead to chaos. And we're already seeing it right now, so.
Yeah, totally. All right, why don't we jump into this new proposal that was put forward from Lightning Labs. They had a quick presentation that they had posted just the other day. I thought it was interesting because the presentation highlights the 402 payment required error that was put into the HTTP hypertext protocol language since the start of the World Wide Web. And, it looks like the early pioneers of the internet kind of imagined a way to embed money into the internet. So, if you've ever came across that 402 payment required error somewhere along your travels on the internet, that's the reason why. They always expected there to be able to do payments natively over top of the internet. I just don't think anybody thought it would be a currency that was actually born on the web. Pretty wild. So this proposal is pretty interesting. It's combining, the HTTP language, macaroons, which is a development from Google, and utilizing the Lightning Network. These macaroons, for people who haven't heard of them, I know I didn't. It's to try to make it simple, it's just a technology for distributed authorization, and it basically just allows for certain permissions. So if you set a macaroon to do certain if-then statements, it will do that. So I think that's pretty interesting, and there's a couple of different use cases that LSAT is what the proposal is called, that it enables. One is pay per request. So if you have an API, you can, let's say you're an exchange and you have an API in for your price data, you could charge per call, a fraction of a cent or a fraction of a sat in this case for those API calls, rather than having to sign up, create an account, do all this stuff where you need to then pay monthly service or whatever. You can just pay for what you use, and pay as you go is another thing called metered billing. So if you wanted to, let's say one that I can imagine people using is paying to use a VPN or Tor, just like for the amount of time that you're using it for, not just pay for a weekly or monthly service for using a VPN. And then the other one, some of the use cases that they were mentioning were pay for time-based subscriptions. So, I thought something cool would be one day you might be able to stream Beef of Bitcoin and pay a couple sats per minute to listen to. And then after, you listen to 10 minutes, the rest of it's free or something like that. So you can get pretty creative with some of the business models here. But I think the thing that you and I wanted to touch on was the fact that this will help to enable the decoupling of needing that account and that authentication, where you need that other person's KYC data. Like they need to sign up, create an account, have something on file where they can make these payments or do this back and forth. And this enables you to not do that. So I think that's hopefully a way that we're trending, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
I was just going to say, instead of using, your typical, have to use a MasterCard, Visa, etc., and putting all your credit card information or debit card into it, and obviously billing address, etc., now it's just click and pay. It's just pretty straightforward.
Right. No, you don't think about that amount of friction that you have for a business when you get to the checkout page of anything. Just all the information that you need to put in, assuming it's for, a digital product, like something like an API and stuff like that. You don't have to go through the hassle of the whole billing information, all this stuff where the other person has to know who you are because you're conducting this payment over the web. And I think there's a lot of friction there in person and retail establishments that KYC data that's trading hands is obfuscated. So like if you ever use Apple Pay or something at a store, I guess it's supposed to feel safer, but you're still passing that information across, even though it's there's not a lot of friction there of filling out a whole web form to order something online. And this is just one more step removed from that, at least from a digital standpoint. So I think just like, as you said, it's, click and pay. That's it.
Exactly. The click and pay is, it's just there, and this could be a wide range of services now. Again, it could be anything from Steam, which is a gaming thing, to Amazon, Microsoft Store, even fucking porn, pardon my language, but that's like, it's just like, there's just a wide variety of services now that, and again, this will probably be obviously more micro payments, smaller payments, probably sub, $100 sub, nothing crazy, but.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, it's funny that you actually mentioned porn there because I had
to, dude. There's no way.
Well,
This is like for like chicks who just want to start their own webcam business. Like, there you go. People can just now, like all the little dudes, the simps can all click and pay right away.
Yeah, it as soon as you said it, it became very obvious. Like that's
cut the middleman out.
Yeah, cut the middleman out. Do you know how much they pay all those sites and stuff like that to kind of those marketplaces to build like the cam stuff? It's insane. Why would they do that if they didn't have to? But you're stuck where you need that identity data, right? Like there's no other way around it. And at least with this, outside of that, maybe any kind of streaming that someone's doing that they want to pay for access to. Shit, even if Raul had like a video on Real Vision that I didn't want to pay the $500 a year subscription to, and I just wanted to watch a couple of the Bitcoin ones, and I could pay $1 or whatever, or 50 cents to watch it. And I don't have to sign up, give any of my personal information, where I live, all this stuff. And you can just pay the 50 cents or quarter, whatever, to stream and watch it. Hell yeah. That's so much better. No accounts, no sign up, nothing. It's, I can feel like we're heading in that direction, and I'm sure it's years away, but until, an average normie uses it, but it sounds good to me.
Yeah, and again, it could happen faster. Like we see with coronavirus adoption, it could be 2 or 3 years before a Lightning network is built into everyone's browser and everyone's using Brave to pay. Who knows?
Yeah, no, it's true. Even you and I, we were using this new tech called Whereby for our recording of this, and you didn't have to put in any account information. You didn't have to pay. You didn't have to do anything. Like, I just sent you a link, you clicked on it, and now we're sharing screens, recording this podcast. And I love that it didn't have an account sign up feature for you in order for you to get started. You can just completely blow past it, click on the link and go. And that's how I imagine things moving, right? We're trying to get away from all the KYC, AML stuff. Like we have to stop giving up that data because it's a honeypot of information that nobody, people have gotten burned from identity theft and stuff like that, but it can get really bad really fast because you're giving up a lot of personal data that could just, you don't want to give that up, right? It can be very dangerous in the wrong hands, and we don't have to collect it. Like it's pointless to collect it.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking like that's like why like I've been like I use Proton Mail and like Proton VPN because I'm trying to get I still have a few Gmail accounts or whatever and it's whatever, but like I'm trying to move all my emails to more secure based stuff because it's like I hate the fact that like I know you and I are millennials but like a lot of the older generation, even people our age, do not care about privacy, and it blows me away. And like I'll use my mom example. She's like, oh, I don't care, I don't have anything to hide. It's like, Mom, it's like you really don't understand. It's like your grandkids' future, it's your own kids' future that you should be worried about. I get it, you don't care, but like it's everyone else, the generations below you that get ruined by this,
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, and I hope that I hope that people don't end up having to care, right? Like you're going to have everything built in, the encryption built in. You don't need to know that the software that you're using right now is end-to-end encrypted and it's not being shared or stored on a server somewhere. It should just be like that from the default. And we've gotten so far away from this and push towards this surveillance capitalism, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if that's the best term for it, but it feels like that sometimes, where privacy was not the default and it was it's an afterthought now, and you can't get that privacy back once you've already given up so much. So I'm really hoping that privacy comes back in a big way, and that it comes back in a big way so much that nobody even has to think twice about it. It will just be private by default and no one will question it anymore.
Exactly. It's one of those things that you said. It has to be built in because the average normie just doesn't care.
Right. I mean, I get it. Even it's a pain. It takes a lot of effort to try to take your privacy seriously, and I try my best, but I'm terrible at it. It needs to be easy enough that I don't know that I'm doing it, basically. So that's kind of where we're at. Why don't we get into the the whole utility token class action suit here? I mean, I guess you and I could have seen this coming from a while away, but there was a coordination of lawsuits filed in New York for alleged securities violations against token issuers and crypto exchanges. Interestingly enough, this was from the same firm that brought the case against Craig Wright. So they're basically claiming numerous tokens were, in fact, unregistered securities. Surprise, surprise. And that these exchanges violated exchange and broker-dealer registration requirements. Certain coins were also named, like EOS, Tron, Civic, so on. And then you had, businesses and individuals being named: Binance, Civic, Block One, Tron, KuCoin, BitMEX, and Dan Larimer, Vinny Lingham, and CZ from Binance. Yeah.
Oh, and
people were
don't forget
and
Arthur Hayes and Arthur Hayes.
Boy, Arthur Hayes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I saw this coming. I'm surprised that Arthur was brought into this.
Yeah, they're derivatives exchange. I don't know why the hell they're brought into this. I mean, they're solely there for liquidity, as you would say, in the market. That's the reason they're there. Yeah.
When I saw this, of course, I laughed at first hand, but then I saw a tweet from Preston Byrne, and he pretty much said that if you're planning on launching a protocol and wondering why you shouldn't cut corners with regulatory compliance, this is why. And then he said, when a recession strikes, it becomes worthwhile for people to pursue anyone to get whatever money they can. So when I saw that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm assuming people got burned trading shit coins like Tron, EOS, whatever. They're down a ton. It's a recession. What else are you going to do while you're under quarantine? Maybe file suit against the shitcoiners who duped you and you lost your shirt trading. I mean, if you're going to try to say that they're unregistered securities, which I'd say that they are, you're going to get burnt. But at the same time, I'm pissed because you need to just learn your lesson. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. It's like you're trading literally digital shit coins that have no real value outside the speculation. You should know better. Like I don't like I hope this just gets thrown away because it's stupid. Because one, all these exchanges are not in the U.S. as far as I know. They're not U.S. based. None of these are, off the top of my head. And so it's like a great, I'm thinking the case I brought up to you earlier was maybe it's like a one broker situation where I feel like Binance is kind of out of that reach. Binance has enough money just to fucking throw at them. But I don't know about the smaller things like KuCoin. I don't know how much money KuCoin has, or any of those smaller tokens that Tron Foundation. It'll be interesting, but again, as you said it perfectly. If you're trading in this shit, and the same thing goes for Bitcoin. The same thing we mentioned about Willy Woo's thing getting completely decimated. You're navigating uncharted fucking waters. There's no circuit breakers. There's no this asset can't go up or down, up 100% in a day and go down 99% the next day. There's just no way around that. So you're in uncharted waters, and and I get it. He nailed it perfectly. Preston Byrne said it. It's people have nothing better to do, so.
Yeah, it's when I saw this and I'm seeing the hammer kind of be brought down a little bit more, and this could end up being a total nothing burger, and it gets dismissed, and nothing ever goes forward with it. But I don't wonder if anybody who was contemplating some sort of utility token scam or shitcoin launch will change their mind, right? It's been, I mean, we're in 2020 now. It's been 2.5 years since the launch of just so many shit coins, utility tokens, you name it. I don't wonder if the horse is finally dead. I have no doubt that come the next bull market or hype cycle, different scams and different errors, right? We saw in previous cycles, you saw like the world coins, country coins for certain locations. You've seen almost everything, right? Then you had the privacy coins, then you had the decentralized apps, and you had the utility and the gas for this and the oil for the whatever. And now I'm sure something's next. The only one who really got away with it so far is the Binance token with its utility for trading fees. I just don't know how many more times you can actually pull that off.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, but again, it's like they're Malta based, if I remember correctly now.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. It's like what's the Southern District of New York going to do? And I mentioned earlier, like it could be like the one broker, but one broker was so much smaller than Binance by like I don't know how many fold, but at least 10, 20 fold, a lot smaller. And it was like a few person company, if even. So, for them, it was easier for their owner just to close up shop and just, return everyone's money and just because he obviously made off pretty well. I think he had that up and running for at least 3 or 4 years. So, with the amount of fees he was making, especially off the spreads, yeah, we'll see. Again, this is a perfect example of we're in uncharted waters with crypto and Bitcoin, and so you're again, any leverage trading in shitcoins, you can get screwed really easily. Even just in Bitcoin, you can get screwed. You can get hacked. You can send the coins to the wrong fucking wallet. So it's like it's not something to play around with, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hopefully we're getting close to the end of that stuff. It's been 10 years, so it's time to, the space will start to mature. So what are your thoughts going into next week? It's, we're going in the second week of April. Tomorrow is going to be Monday the 6th. What are your thoughts on big picture macro stuff?
That's a good question. I originally shorted equities a while ago, but I haven't been in that market for a while, and I've seen retail. And I guess I consider myself retail, but when I talk retail, I'm talking like retard money. Texted me the past few weeks, especially in late March about shorting the market, and then obviously we face melted like 20%, and it didn't even feel like we face melted. I mean, it was like 3 days and we went up like 20%, but even with the shitty data that keeps coming out about coronavirus, I mean, the futures are up 3%. I mean, we're in a global pandemic and futures are up 3%. Either the market knows something or the market's just completely retarded. I would like to believe that it knows something, or it's just I firmly believe that this is the beginning of something much bigger. The coronavirus is merely the pin to what really was the underlying of all this everything bubble, and we're going to see a lot of things change. But one of those being, this is probably the beginning of the worst bear market we're ever going to experience. I would hope so, at least if it is. I mean, it's already a bear market, but in general, just looking at, maybe we rally, another 10. I mean, either way, we're rallying. If we're rallying or going down, it's going to be a lot. I don't see anything sitting still. I mean, there's a lot of volatility right now across everything. And when I'm just looking at the Dow Jones chart now, it's either we go back up and rally up to 25, 26K area, which would, again, eviscerate every bear who's levered up and too exposed. And then just as all, the kids my age who want to buy stocks because they went down 20%, hop in, the fucking hammer drops. That's how I see it going, kill all the retail money that buys the dip.
Yeah, I mean, the way you were talking about this makes me think, something that Raul's been talking about. Is it recession or a depression? If it's the start of something bigger, it can last a long time. And I don't think anybody is used to that, or thinking about
No.
that, or thinks it's even possible. And when you think about the word depression is really shitty. It sounds absolutely terrible. And I was listening to Bitcoin Tina the other day, and he had mentioned um, he's been saying for the last year or so, the stock market might be flat for a decade. And when he said that, I didn't think that meant a whole recessionary or depressionary era could just play itself out, meaning for the next 10 years we can go up, down, sideways, and really have that deflationary impact at first before it kind of moves on. And I just don't think anybody's ready for that. Everyone's just thinking stock market goes up every day and little by little, and you retire and ride off into the sunset, and there's no inflation and blah 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 blah. And it just I don't know. I can't tell anymore.
Well, like think about like non-American markets, like freaking European equities that went nowhere. I guess the DAX went up somewhat from 2009, but really not as much. And now it's already erased half its gains. Let's see, FTSE, Italy. Yeah, like Italy is still way below its 2008 peak. Like, again, it's like it's a lot of, besides for U.S. equities. Like I love always using the Nikkei 225 because like I mean literally that thing hasn't seen its all-time high since 1989, which is just a reminder for people that like there will be people who are going to buy this dip and buy every dip for the next fucking 5 years, and we won't see Dow 30K. And we might see Dow 30K in 15 years, or we could see it in a week. I don't know. My point is that if this is what I think it is, it's going to be a long way to the bottom, and like that bottom might not be till Dow fucking below 10K, like Dow 8K or Dow 7K. That's going to be really hard for America to stomach, and that will mean just every freaking pension is destroyed, endowments losing 75% of their value, and obviously a lot of 401ks, ruined completely, And that will inevitably mean just companies going under.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could get pretty ugly pretty fast. None of that has even happened yet, and we still have like 6 million unemployed all of a sudden. Within the last 2 weeks, things can just happen so quickly, and you almost. I like looking at the bigger picture and the macro stuff because you can see where money is flowing to. You can see money, dumb money flowing into equities, smart money flowing out for the last 2 months, gold being very volatile, silver being very volatile, Bitcoin being very volatile. The whole macro shakeup from a global standpoint is happening. Even when you look at oil, everything is finding its price, I think. And you always like to say, it's into price discovery if it's like in free fall or something like that. And it's like, we're going to see a lot of stuff start to reprice over the next, years. I'm thinking the next 12 months is going to be insane. The next 24 months will be wild. And then when we get to that 36-month mark, I'm like, I just have no clue. You could be way up, you could be way down, you could be exactly where we are today.
Yeah.
And everything could be at a different price, which it blows my mind.
Yeah, and I was gonna use, if you're watching on YouTube, I highlighted this green area. This is the Bitstamp chart of Bitcoin, and just like this range from this morning at 2:30 a.m. to this afternoon, and like the perfect example I was talking earlier with on a bigger picture on the Dow was like, okay, now that we've went down and like most bears that were over levered, a few weeks ago got wrecked, but there's still more people adding shorts on or whatever and wanting to short this even more. They could get eviscerated if the Dow jumps. And the perfect example here I use is this 15-minute chart where the range was stuck between like 68.30 and 67.50 for most of the day. Then what happened? Longs get liquidated as Bitcoin drops out of this range down to 670, and then immediately jumps back up and liquidates any shorts. I mean, that's how the market works. The market wants to do as much fucking pain as possible to everyone, bears and bulls, and that's what I'm looking at right now. Is like, where's the most pain right now? The most pain is probably up, which will eviscerate the shorts. So maybe 2,500 here, looking right here. That seems like a solid area to go to. Destroy the rest of the shorts you keep adding on, And then as the retail money, the people who have been reaching out to me asking what stocks to buy, and I just say no clue. It's like that's an example. Like I didn't get those texts in 2018 at the end of 2018 when we dropped 20%. I didn't get them on any of the 5% fucking dips in 2019. It was only after we dropped like 25% that people texted me about buying stocks, which, is kind of eerie because it's like, okay, we've had a bunch of other dips in the past years and people didn't buy. And now they want to buy stocks. Why? Especially on the cusp of global, well, we already are in a global pandemic, but, on the cusp of everything just shutting down. So, again, I think up, kill shorts, down, kill all the retail money. And I know it sounds scary, but Dow 8K is like long term when you're talking another year or two. It could only take a year. I mean, it really won't take that long considering how fast we went down. Dow 8K or even really Dow 6666. This is a nice spot,
Yeah, I mean it sounds absurd when you say it like that, but you don't know you can't predict the future, right? It's impossible to say. And it sounds, because it sounds so unimaginable, the more convinced I am that it has a probability much greater than like zero, right? Like it's not like, oh, there's no chance this happens. Like shit, man, like it really could. It could just be something like you've never seen before. And it blows my mind. It's decades and decades of out of control central banks, like George Gammon likes to say, just fiat money printed out of proportion. And it's unbelievable to see it like on those long-term charts. Like if you're watching right now from 1974 all the way up until 2020, and it's like unreal how much value has been pumped into the stock markets globally.
And again, as Ralph Powell mentioned, it's a demographic thing. You think about all the baby boomers and the kids they have buying stocks, and all those baby boomers, had to buy stocks, whether it's through 401ks or just buying in general. And so when you have those additional people buying, if there aren't people selling that stock, it's only going to get bidded up, the more people that buy. And I was looking at the 1987 crash here, which looks like nothing on this regular, linear chart. And a log chart looks probably a lot worse. But when you look at that, you're like, oh, maybe this is the 1987. Maybe this, coronavirus isn't real, and we slowly just kind of meander along and eventually break out. It might take a few years. Who knows? I could be wrong, but I think this is it. I mean, a decade of no serious bear markets. Yeah. And then start a bubble. I mean, I have a really hard time seeing anywhere but down over the next few years. It's hard to say in the short term. As I said, short term, I think go up higher, eviscerate bears, and then kill all the retail money. Like, it blows me away how many people are complacent that the fucking stock market dropped. Indexes, not just individual stocks, dropped 30% in like 3 weeks, and people want to buy the dip. It's like, mind-boggling.
Right. Not. It's definitely surprising, but not at the same time, because that's where we are in the cycle, and it's you've got people day trading on Robinhood. So what else can you expect? I mean, it totally fits, and the printing presses will not turn off. The show will go on, and we're gonna watch it unfold, and it is what it is. And I can see you bringing up the Federal Reserve balance sheet here, and it's something that we've brought up multiple times.
It's so ridiculous.
Over
the chart's so retarded now.
And it's funny because I recall you talking about this months ago, maybe even 6-9 months ago, as the chart started to creep back up, and you were like, you were trying to tell me this line could just go vertical, and you have no idea the balance sheet could just explode. And it's not that I didn't believe you. It's just that you always think, it's gonna grow, and they're gonna add, but it went
vertical
immediately vertical.
Dude, fuck. It's like breakout, dude. It was like we kind of like went sideways. Like we started pumping again, like September, October, and then like December and January we kind of flattened out. It was like, oh, they might not actually, and then boom, like literally, It's just a vertical fucking line. I mean, it's depressing, but it's funny at the same time because like you just like no way they could fucking do it, and they do it.
Right. You can't think that it's possible until you see it happen with your own two eyes. And now I know we've had the whole QE talk on the schedule for us to talk about for an episode, but I keep pushing it back because I still don't think we have a clear line of sight of what they're actually going to do.
No.
It's changing week by week. So I'm almost going to push it off a little bit longer until we can kind of document the history of what happened. I think that would be a fun episode to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, we're adding to 10 trillion.
You're right, exactly. And I think 10 trillion might end up being kind of low.
Yeah, I mean that's only going up. Basically doubling from where we are now.
Right. Let's double.
Yeah, we were on February 26th when everything was all right. We were at 4.158 trillion. Then we hit 4.3 trillion on March 11th. 4.668 trillion on March 18th, which I think was a brand new all-time high. I'm really zoomed in here. And then we hit 5.254 trillion on March 25th. And the last reading, which is as of Wednesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day, LOL, 5.811 trillion. It's absolutely incredible. Even just looking right here, I'm really zoomed in, but the Federal Reserve tried fucking reducing the balance sheet from, I don't know when that is. That's going to be, I think that's,
the beginning of...
Oh, that's 2018. Yeah, that's 20. I didn't see the bottom there, but yeah, that's 2018. Yeah. So they reduced the balance sheet from the beginning of 2018, and it was a slow bleed off. I mean, we're talking like what, 50 billion a week or something like that. Might have been a month. But we went from 4.46 trillion all the way down to the summer where everything blew up in the repo market, started to blow up basically. Down to 3.759 trillion. And then in this less than the span of 6 months, we've just absolutely blown everything out. We basically doubled the balance sheet almost at this point. I mean, I bet you by the end of April, we will have doubled the balance sheet in 7 months, which is incredible.
It's unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable.
And this is something you don't hear any of the, I'll use the Democratic debates. You don't hear them talk about it. You don't hear fucking Trump. Well, Trump talks about actually lots of zero rates because he can get free money, and negative rates to get paid to take loans. He boasts about it now, which drives me nuts. But you don't see fucking CNN, MSNBC, Fox News talking about this. They should be like, hey, American people, you're getting ripped off by this private entity that isn't owned by the government, and these bunch of old dudes who just decide whether or not to inflate, your money supply for no reason. I wouldn't say no reason at this point, but still,
Yeah, it's the most hidden thing that it gets like really conspiratorial, because it's like if you were to say to somebody, what's the one thing you use every day that you have no idea it's being changed right in front of your eyes, and it's the money, and it has been throughout history, and it's the one thing you just never thought about, and it's weird that you never thought about it. And you're right, nobody talks about it because I feel like it would be a much bigger deal if you really felt it. And that inflation rate's just low enough for consumer prices that people kind of keep going without speaking up too much. Ground meat's what, $3.99 a pound. It's like, oh, okay, what's the big deal? But you don't realize it was $1.99 maybe a decade ago or 15 years ago.
Yeah,
it's 100% increase, right? It sucks, but it matters to the anyone below kind of that 1%, right? It does add up after a while with rent, education costs, healthcare, and then on top of that, your food prices double every 10 years or faster sometimes, or shrinkflation. And there's a limit to that, and eventually people get pissed and they start to speak up. But we're not there yet.
And again, like if you're making a few mil a year, or even $500K a year, like most of the fucking Federal Reserve people, the people at Federal Reserve are all making fucking six figures easily, all of them. It's ridiculous. And they don't notice the inflation because they make $300K a year plus all the benefits they get from being on the Federal Reserve, whatnot. And so someone making $8 million a year, fucking who they don't care if the price of meat goes up $5. They don't give a fuck. They really don't. But it's the people again. I'll use the $15 minimum wage. I don't get the minimum wage argument. It's the dumbest thing in the world. Let supply and demand, let free market forces set that. Raising the minimum wage to $15 in certain cities or states is stupid because, one, it just forces employers to cut hours or cut employees. There's no way around it. Like, and again, and then it just drives up. Like, I'm sure you see because you're in California, in a lot of the West Coast cities where there's $15 minimum wage. Prices are fucking insane there. The few times I've been out west in California, prices are ridiculous, dude. It's not even real.
Yeah. No, it sucks. You make a good point. I agree on all counts. And it is, it's that stuff that you think is helping that ends up not helping. And it's just only a matter of time before it becomes more obvious. So I think that's where I try to take the optimistic view that people are upset and angry. Like we're getting close to the end of the line here where, we saw the yellow vest protests for what, like a year straight.
Yeah.
And, people are pissed. There is a limit to the amount that you can tax, whether it be via inflation or whether it's direct taxation or your income tax, property tax, whatever. There is a limit before people get upset and say something. And it feels like we're going to get close the next time around as all this inflation that is getting exported away by the central bank starts to come back through with inflation because there's not enough supply of all the stuff that we need. So I have no doubt that we're going to see it at some point. I have no idea when, but I imagine it is soon, within the next year for sure.
Yeah, and getting back to what you just said, like people are going to be pissed, and I think we're pretty close to that people getting pissed point. We just had over 6 million. Over 6 million people laid off in America. And is it 9 million? Because it was 3.3 and then 6.
Yeah.
But so over 10 million people have been laid off in the past month, and probably a lot of them lower wage workers. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of middle tier salary people getting laid off, and a lot of companies just cutting excess fat left and right. And I'm pretty sure my friend in California, I'm not gonna mention his name, but I don't know if he got fired, but he said like half of people in his startup got fired. I don't know if he did too, but I wouldn't be surprised the way he worded it. I didn't ask him because I didn't want to, but it was like, it's shitty. And as we mentioned before, the startup bubble is going to get wrecked by this because no one's fucking giving money to any startups right now. Why would you? Everyone wants cash right now. Everyone wants cash. The last thing you're going to do is lend out $1 million to a fucking startup that you have zero idea. They're not profitable. You have no idea where they're going. And we're going to see, I think here, and I mentioned that this last night on the podcast about, the police in a lot of cities are now not responding to like burglaries, robberies, you name it, anything really serious. It's really scary, and people on the way left of the spectrum started buying guns because guess what they realized? You need to protect yourself. It's like, yeah, no shit, and that's why I've been talking to one of my buddies from college. He works at a gun store, and he was talking about like literally the only thing they can get right now is 9mm and 40 cal. They literally can't get, and they like every time they get 5.56 and it just ships off. And I personally ordered ammo like fucking 4 weeks ago. I have ammo, but I ordered more because I wanted a certain specific grain for 5.56, and literally I don't even think it's shipped yet. And I ordered online because I ordered bulk. And they literally have a 2 or 3 week delay off the website I use, and it's like that for a lot of websites. Like the demand for ammo and guns went through this. And I recently purchased 2 firearms not too long ago, and the dude at the store, they literally were like, yeah, we're crushing, we're selling out of everything. No, literally, they were selling out of everything. He sold off all 9mm ammo. People are coming in buying guns for first time. So it's interesting to see. People all of a sudden really want guns. Even the people who think we shouldn't have high-capacity, semi-automatic guns. It's like, fuck you.
Yep.
It's like, fuck you. Oh, where's your police now?
The limit has been reached. I think you're right. The limit has been reached. I don't know. I think that's a good way to wrap this one up. Definitely a lot to look forward to next week. I'm pumped to record the next episode next week after we see how things shake out. This is going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully next week we can also do an interview with Lawrence Leopard to talk about the whole gold situation that's been going on. Talk a little bit about Bitcoin. Excited to have him on the show. So that'll be awesome. But yeah, this is episode 83. Thanks for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Send us a DM on any platform. Let us know what you want us to talk about. What else? Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That definitely helps. And times are tough. Be safe out there. Take care of each other. Good luck. Peace.